Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric, back in the home studio. Thanks for all the new subscribers that came over from Nobody Special. Hit me up if you guys have any comments. We try to do AMAs once every 2 weeks, once a week, something like that. Um, but I was watching the news on my way home, and I saw that Santa Claus Biden is now awarding a pension fund $36 billion. Now, unfortunately for Biden, he is in a giving mood, but he doesn't actually give from what he has, 'cause the government doesn't have any money. They tax it or they print it. He takes from you, and this is for every politician. They take from you and distribute around to who they can buy votes from. I've been reading this book called When Money Dies, and it's about Weimar Germany. And you got to think to as I read this book, I think to myself, how similar, because no one saw it coming. No one saw the hyperinflation coming or diagnosed it correctly, unfortunately. At the time, they thought it was from rampant speculation, but they were basically looking at the symptoms of the printing, like the rampant speculation, people who had homes and who had assets becoming wealthier. They were looking at those symptoms and they thought, "That's the problem. That's whose fault it is. It's not that the government's printing money." And so when Biden awards a pension, $36 billion, you gotta think to yourself, first question should be, what is the cost and what is the benefit? Obviously, it benefits the people that got the 36 billion. Where'd the money come from? The money came from you and me. Every single time the government prints money, they take a little bit of purchasing power away from every worker in the economy. And then you got to ask yourself, why can't the pension pay out its beneficiaries in the first place? Because pensions run these actuarial tables and they're based off predictions and growth from the past and yada, 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 and how many pension beneficiaries they have. But for some reason, they're way behind. Now, what has caused the pension fund to be way behind? Well, negative real rates. Negative rates on government treasuries. Because since the government is in so much debt, they cannot pay a rate above the rate of inflation to people that want to buy government debt. They cannot do it because they have too much. So they have to have financial repression. They have to pay under the rate of inflation. And so if a pension wants to pay out its beneficiaries, they have to have some kind of allocation of equities, which have some risk, a lot more risk than treasuries. And treasuries, if the treasuries yield nothing, in fact, negative yield, then there's kind of SOL. And that's why they're in the place they're in to begin with. And so it's frustrating to me that the government causes the problem and then exacerbates it by printing more money. But my call to action to you, I know most of the people watching this channel think very similar to me. But my call to action to you after reading, When Money Dies, so many people didn't know. And I know a lot of this falls on deaf ears for people if you try to tell them, unfortunately. But is this going to end? Because if you look at the system politicians, when it comes to printing money, they get to buy votes from handing out stimmies or handing out benefits to union workers, whatever it is. They buy votes, and usually the consequences of that printing aren't felt for a decade, a couple of years. I think that's gonna change now because we're our backs are up against the wall with our $31 trillion in debt, and it's a lot harder for politicians to advocate for more printing when we're dealing with inflation. But, you have a choice. Politicians are gonna tell you, anything to tickle your ear and make you feel better about the situation, but the reality is the dollar is going to die, and what I mean by the dollar is going to die is your average person that you interact with on a regular basis, I think within our lifetime, I think actually within, the next 2 decades or so, and I think it's gonna be slow and then all at once, won't want the dollar. They will get paid, and the first thing on their mind will be, "How do I get rid of this thing and buy something that is going up in value so fast?" Because they realize that the dollar is losing value, and therefore everything's going up in price. So this vicious cycle of inflation continues at record pace because it's not just math anymore, it's also in people's heads. Think that the price is gonna go up, therefore they buy more and more and more years, okay? So, the call to action is, what are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna continue to trust in the dollar? Are you gonna continue to trust in the fiat currency that and the track record of every fiat currency is it goes to 0? Or are you going to look outside of the system? Are you gonna see the writing on the wall? You're gonna see the math, and you're gonna see the incentives from politicians who want to continue to spend, and there's no stopping. Doesn't matter what politician's in office, okay? Republicans and Democrats, 2 factions of the same mafia. They want to print money, and they're gonna continue to do it. So and your average voter is gonna vote for it. That's just the truth. So you can pretend that we there's this army of people that want fiscal responsibility. It's not gonna happen. Unfortunately, I mean, history tells us that. And plus, we're too far gone, 31 trillion. So you can protect yourself, right? You can invest in things. You can use this to your advantage because you understand that money's gonna continue to be printed, purchasing power is gonna continue to go down. And if you buy things that the government can't print more of, real estate, gold, silver, Bitcoin, things like that, I think you're going to be in a much better place because when you realize this won't stop, you got to protect yourself. And eventually, everyone, your neighbor, everyone's going to be like, well, how did you know a decade ago that this was going to happen? It's math. Okay. So let's take a look at this article here from CNN. Yeah, I know it's CNN, but I like to vary my sources so people don't think I'm too one-sided. But it says Biden administration awards 36 billion to save a pension of 357,000 union workers. Great. Okay. That's a benefit for those 357,000 union workers. Now, this is a private pension, and you might as well say that the Biden administration bailed out Apple. Okay, private company can't pay its workers potentially. And it's like, "Oh, you can't pay your workers, you're not making enough profit. Um, how about here's 36 billion from the taxpayer?" That wouldn't sell as well. But a lot of people don't realize this pension is private. They make money. Okay. Okay. It says here they gave this $36 billion on Thursday. Lucky for them. The money announced Thursday goes to the Central States Pension Fund, which has been struggling financially for many years. Why you may why do they struggle? They have to get money from. Obviously, they have to go into the market and risk capital, but also they need some kind of risk-free rate, AKA a treasury. And again, the treasuries are not paying out above the rate of inflation. So we had the same problem in England, where but they had to use even more leverage, yada yada yada. But it says here the private emphasis on private pension fund covers workers and retirees for more than 1,000 companies across a range of industries, including warehouse workers, construction workers, food processors. Most of the retirees are truck drivers. And I honestly hate to see this because your average worker is sitting there, working hard, 16-hour days. Truck drivers work very hard, and they put money into this pension, and they think it's a guarantee. They've been lied to. They've been lied to. And so when the incentives, obviously the pension also wants to pay people out, unless it's a massive Ponzi, but pension wants to pay people out. Okay, but they cannot make what they need to make because the market is so distorted because the government is printing so much money. So then the government comes in and attacks a symptom that, pensions can't make money because the government has distorted the market so much. And then the government distorts the market even more by paying a pension taxpayer money. Yeah, can't make really just bothers me, okay? So, a lot of these retirees are hardworking Americans who help the economy go round, and, so they go to the government for help, and the government acquiesces because 357,000 people, "Hey, we can get a lot of votes here." Okay, without the influx of money, the funds, workers, and retirees were facing benefit reductions of roughly 60% over the next few years. Now, with the $36 billion awarded, the fund is expected to be able to pay full benefits through at least 2051. I highly, highly doubt that. And the reason I doubt that is because these actuarial tables where they plug in how much is being contributed, it's based off of 2% inflation. So, what happens if inflation goes to 10 or 20? How long does that money last? 2051? No. Okay. About 2030. Yeah. So the government creates more inflation by handing this money out, and, because the purchasing power is coming from somebody, that's from you, okay? A little bit of purchasing power is coming from everybody when they hand out this money, and then just make the problem worse, and in another 9 years, the pension will have the same problem because inflation's going up even more, and again, call to action. This is not gonna stop. You see this ridiculous monetary and fiscal policy, and if you look at the math, you realize, I have a choice to make. I can continue to believe in this fiat Ponzi of spending more money, and this is gonna get we're gonna get more desperate here. This is not gonna be the last pension that needs bailing out. I can guarantee you that, okay? So they're having problems, other pensions are having problems too, and it's gonna get to the point where it's whack-a-mole. The government is trying to quell or cure, the disease of inflation by just dealing with symptoms, right? So it's whack-a-mole. "Oh, but that person needs money, that person needs money," and all this time, they're making it worse and worse and worse and worse. And if you read When Money Dies, you realize the incentives were the same back then as they are today. And politicians will lie to you, and they will they'll do anything they need to get your vote. And so I my prediction is it's gonna continue, it's gonna get worse, and no matter how mad it makes you, um, I think, the action step is do something different with your dollars, okay? You have to have cash flow, you have to have more money than your expenses, and then what do you do with that cash flow? How do you benefit from politicians continuing to do this, unfortunately? A little bit of a rant, but, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, guys. See you in the next one. Peace.